Okay, welcome back to tutorial 4. So today we're going to talk about if else and switch in case statements. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new script. And let's blow this up. And let me get this one. I'm going to copy my header. Okay, so we're going to do if else statements, switch case. This first one I made a long time ago, 2013. Okay. And I am using this book, Chapter 8 of More, Matlab for Engineers. This was the 3rd edition. There's many Matlab books, but the help, Google, they're good sources too. So, okay. Go ahead and save this. Save it into downloads, and let's call it if else statement. Okay. All right. Cool. So before I do that, just briefly, I want to talk about the find command. Okay, because sometimes it's easier to use a find command than maybe an if else. Okay. All right, so we're going to define a matrix X. It's going to be 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 1.0, 1.1, and 1.2. Now, if you remember, I hope as you were typing this or I was typing it, you're like, Dr. Craig, you don't need to do that. You can just do the colon. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. Okay. T, this is temperature. Let's say 100, 98, 56, 30, 120, 45, 200, 178, 34, 67, 98, 143, and 200. This is in Kelvin, and this is in meters. Let's pretend it's meters. Okay. So again, 2 matrices. I'm going to dock this. Make this up a little bit more. Scroll down. Click enter a few. All right. So I'm going to run this. Change folder. And I want to make sure. So what I'm kind of doing here is think of a bar. It's fixed here, and there's a bar, and these are the temperatures at the X locations. Okay. So the bar is 1.2 meters long. So sometimes if you're ever doing this and you're inputting numbers, you want to make sure you didn't miss any. Okay. And if you go to your workspace, both are the same size. It's a 1 by 13 matrix. So if you type X, right, it's got 13 columns, not 13 rows, because of the way we actually wrote that. Okay. Just a few things. Make a new variable called POS, and we're going to find the temperatures when they're equal to 200. Okay. This will tell us the location in the T matrix where the temperature is 200, exactly 200. So if you really want to make it equals, you have to do equal, equal. Okay. So if I run this, it should say 13. Okay. And 7. So it gives us 7 and 13. Okay. So you could say that the temperature at 200 is equal to T of POS. Okay. Those should give you 200. Okay. So we're saying, what is the temperature at POS, this position where we found the temperatures at 200? Well, they better be 200. Okay. Now, if you want to find what the X positions are, then you can just type, we can make a new variable, call it 200. equals, run it. And this tells us the location where the temperatures are 200. So it's at 0.6 and 1.2. Okay, because position, if I type position, it was 7 and 13. So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's 0.6, 0.6, and then 13's all the way at the end. Okay, pretty cool. Put the semicolons in. All right, let's make a new variable. Let's say find the temperature when it's greater than or equal to 100. This will tell you the locations or the matrix numbers where the temperatures are greater than 100. So if I run this, okay, or equal to 100. So it's 1, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12, and 13. These are the locations, okay? So here's 1, here's 4, here's 5, here's 7, 8, and then 12, 13, because the size of T is 13. We can also say, well, what are those X values at that location? Well, they're 0, 0.3, 0.4, 0.6, 0.7, 1.1, and 1.2, okay? So we're determining what locations in the matrix are the temperatures greater than 100 and are that. We can now, if you really wanted to, we could say T of G, and these would give us the temperatures that are there, 100, 130, 120, 200, 178. Those are the temperatures that are greater than or equal to 100. Cool. Semicolons on there. Let's see here. H equals find temperature greater than or equal to 100 and the temperature is less than or equal to 150. Okay. So these are we're going to try to find the number of the matrix where the temperature is greater than or equal to 100 and it's less than or equal to 150. Okay. So if I run this, it's telling us that location 1 in the T matrix, which is 100, location 4, which is 130, and location 5, which is 120, and 12, which is 143. Okay. So 1, 4, 5, and 12. These are the, if I type T, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. So I can say, what are those X values at those locations? And tell me those temperatures at those locations. Okay. And I can just say, like, make a new variable. And these would tell me the actual values of H at those ranges that I'm trying to look for and what the temperatures are. Okay. Oh, that's a quick, sometimes we use this. Sometimes it's easier to use the find command when you're trying to look for certain things in the matrix. Okay. Now let's look at if and else statements. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste, and then we'll write the if statement. We kind of did this last time. Okay. So we're going to program the quadratic equation, which we talked about last tutorial, which was a squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, these are the coefficients. So we got, we're just going to pick one. So 1, there's nothing in front of, like it's 0 times x, and c is -9. Okay. If you remember, you have two roots, the positive and the negative. Okay, and you can copy and paste this from your code that you made last time. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to make an if statement to only spit out the positive answer. Okay, because if we're using dynamics, for example, or physics, you always want a positive time. You can't have a negative time. So if, this is how you write it, if answer 1 is greater than 0, then the answer, or correct answer, is answer 1, semicolon. F printf, the time is positive. Backslash and semicolon. And then I'll write it. Then you write else. The correct answer would be answer 2. Okay. So this is how you write if else statement. Okay. So here I'm writing if space, if the answer 1 is greater than 0, that's the answer we want. That's correct. Okay. And we haven't done this yet, but we can spit that value to the command window instead of suppressing this. Okay, if this is the correct way to send something to the command window. Okay, we use fprintf, we then use single quote, and we type in what we want. Whoops, in between the single quotes. Okay, if you want, we can do this, and then put a comma, answer 1, just to show you. Okay, this %f. All right, anytime you have %f, or we'll talk about other things later, whatever the value that you put after the comma here will spit into here, and I'll show you. And this \n is a return. Okay, if this answer is not greater than 0, that's what the else is saying. The correct answer would be answer 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. All right, so the answer became 3. All right, and see how this spit out, and then it gave us this. We can actually fix this and just put 2.1. Okay. All right. And we'll talk about these later, but this is just to give you a preview of what's to come later on. Okay. Now, I don't know. I have no idea if this will work, but let's try 3. Still that. Let's make this 3. I'm just randomly putting numbers in to show you that it's probably 2 imaginary numbers. Okay. So if I go back to what I had, which I think was 0 minus 9, and run it. Do you see how if I take that semicolon, we just get correct equals 3? That's bad format. That's why we use fprintf. Okay, boom. So you just wrote your first if-else statement. Pretty cool. All right. Now, let's try another example. Another example. Let's go x equals 10. We'll say if x is greater than 0, y equals log of x, else beep, and display. This is another way that you can spit stuff to the command window. The input must be positive. \n to return, and then we need an end. Okay. So anytime you have an if, you need an end. So here we're saying if x is greater than 0, then we have an equation. Else, it'll tell us to stop, and it needs to be positive. Okay. So boom, we'll run it, and it should work. Now, if we put negative, then it should go into this command and should give us an issue. So the input must be positive. Okay. Oops, what happened here? Yep, okay, oops, I don't need the \n in that for display. Okay. All right, and it beeped. Did you hear it? Let me turn it up. Here we go. You hear it beep? Okay. Because it's saying it doesn't work. Okay. Now, a couple things. If, say your code is kind of messed up like this, highlight your code and then hit Control I, and it will format for you to make it easier on the eyes. Okay. Because you should always indent if you do if statements. All right, I'll make that positive so it doesn't keep beeping on us. Let's do else if. Okay. Another example. R1 equals 1, R2 equals 5, and R3 equals 6. If R1 equals 0, fprintf, we are using R1, \n. Okay. And you can put whatever else, like put more code here if you want, right? Then we're going to say else if R2 is equal to 6, fprintf, we are using R2. And then again, you can put more code here if you want. And then else if R3 equals 6, then fprintf, we are using R3. And end. Okay, so I like to use, when you have more than like 2 options, like up here, it's either positive or negative, right? So just do if else. But if you now have 3 options that you're picking from, okay, and I run it, then use else if, okay? So more than 2, use else if. If it's just 2, just use if and then else, okay? You can have multiple ones here, all right? So, and again, each one of these could be like, okay, here's an equation, and we're going to use maybe this equation if R3 is equal to 6, okay? So if I change this to like 2 and I change this to 6, then it should say we're using R2, okay? So recap real quick. Showed you the find command. I showed you the if else breakdown. Here's an if and else if you're using more than like 2 options. Now let's talk about the last thing, which is switch statements. And I'm going to copy and paste this part here. Okay. So switch statements. These are, oops, don't worry about that. Okay. These are text statements. Okay. So here I've defined a matrix, homework grades. We have 100, 30, and 90. Okay. Here's a test grades, 67 and 98. Okay. Now, I'm making a choice, okay, where I type choice and I say in single quotes, let's look at homework grades only. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to type switch and then define the choice. Oops. Then this would be case 1, which would be homework grades. And then homework average equals mean of all homework grades. And then case 2 would be test grades. Test average equals mean all test grades. And then end. So what we're doing here is instead of doing what we did up here with else if, where we had numbers, we wanted to say, okay, we want 2 choices or 3 choices or whatever. And we want to do it in terms of like a text statement. Okay. For example, in fluid mechanics, we could use laminar or turbulent as our text. Okay. And we can have those different cases or different solutions. Okay. So when you do this, I always define choice. I put it in single quotes. Make sure you do single quotes. This is text. Okay. Homework grades. And then what I'm doing here is I'm defining it and saying switch, and I'm saying here's my choices. Okay, I only have 2 choices. I have homework grades, which is case 1, or test grades. Okay, so if I want to switch this, I would switch this to test grades. Now, if I just type homework grades, it's going to only calculate this line of the code. Okay, so I can suppress this and run it, and it gave me the average. If I suppress this, it should not give me that because my choice is only homework grades. Okay. If I switch it to test grades, then I can run it and it's only going to show me the test grade average. Okay. So these are switch and case. These are text statements. And we use those quite often. Okay. I use them quite a bit when I'm doing fluid mechanics and I have different choices. Or, for example, I'm teaching propulsions last fall. We're looking at jet engines. And there was a case where we wanted to do ideal case or non-ideal case. So those were my 2 different cases. And there's different equations that would go inside those cases. Okay. All right. And then the last thing, I'm just going to copy and paste and go through it with you, is you can make, let's get rid of this, a push button menu to have the user select. Okay. So here, again, I'm doing a switch in case. This, I'm just clearing everything above. This command menu and whatever's in your single quote, okay, is going to be a text. So I'm going to say select course from menu, and then I'm going to have 2 options, left and right. And I'm going to show you this because I'm going to teach you the return command. So when I'm debugging my code, I'm going to make sure something's working. I always like to just type return, and the code will no longer go past line 96 now. Okay, so I'm going to run it and show you what that does. So you see this? This made a menu where you can select left or right, and I just picked one. Okay, and choice 2 has a number assigned to it, which is 2, which I click right. If I click left, the choice is 1. Okay, so that's my 2 cases. Okay. So when you do a menu like that, you have to do a switch in a case. Okay. Here, slightly different. You don't need these type of brackets. You can just say case 1, fprintf, you're going left. Case 2, fprintf, you're going right, and whatever calculations you need to do. Maybe it's a miles per gallon calculation, and the right is 100 miles and the left is maybe 10 miles or something like that. Okay. So if I run this, I pick left and it spits out you were going left. Okay. If I run it again, pick right, then it says you are going right. Okay. Just some fancy little add-ons, and we'll be sprinkling stuff in like that because you never know when you want something like this. Okay. All right. So in summary, we talked about the find command. Okay, so if I scroll up to the top, we went through find, and that finds the number that whatever you're looking for in that matrix, and then you can grab those informations, that information, whatever you need. We looked at if and else statements. We looked at if and else if, which is typically used for more than 1 or more than 2 options. And usually for its if and else, they're number based. But if you want text solutions or cases, then use a switch and case command, and I showed you how to type those up. And then this one's just kind of a cool little thing with a menu bar if you want to have the user pick that. All right, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.